Hello everyone, welcome to the lecture series on DBMS. In our last discussion, we talked about the degree of relationship. Now we are going to discuss about the cardinality ratio. The cardinality ratio expresses the number of entities to which other entity can be related. For example, the number of entities from this entity set can relate to the number of entities in this entity set, and that represents the cardinality ratio. Now we have four types of relationships for which we have these cardinality ratios. We'll look at them one by one. The first is one-to-one relationship, for which the cardinality ratio is 1:1. The example for that is citizen and Aadhaar card number. Now we know that for one citizen, only one Aadhaar card number can be there, and if one Aadhaar card number is assigned to one citizen, now it cannot be assigned to any other citizen. So we can say if this is an entity set A and this is an entity set B, then one entity from entity set A can be related to at most one entity from entity set B. Now the word that we have to focus over here is at most. That defines that this is the maximum number that an entity can relate to an entity, right? It says that this citizen 1 can maximally relate to one entity from this entity set. However, below that is possible. For example, if one citizen does not have any Aadhaar card number, that is completely fine. This citizen is not associated with any Aadhaar card number, that is fine. Likewise, if there is some number, Aadhaar card number, that is so far not associated to any citizen, that is also permitted. But if there is one Aadhaar card number assigned, then that Aadhaar card number then that citizen should not be assigned with any other Aadhaar card number. And if one Aadhaar card number is assigned to one citizen, then that Aadhaar card number cannot be assigned to any other citizen. Now we need to understand that this makes up one-to-one relationship, and the cardinality ratio that we have for that is 1:1. Now, how do we represent that in ER diagram? So we know there is one citizen that can have one Aadhaar card number, and one Aadhaar card number can be assigned to one citizen. So we represent this with 1 over the edge. Now we also represent it with the arrow like this. This represents that there is one citizen who can associate with one Aadhaar card number that we have. Now we need to understand one-to-many relationship. Now this is the example for understanding one-to-many relationship where we have considered the person and mobile number. Now we know that one person can have multiple mobile numbers. However, if one mobile number given to one person, then that mobile number is now cannot be given to any other person. So we can understand if these are set A and set B, then an entity from set A can be associated with multiple entities from set B. However, one entity from set B can be associated with only one entity from set A. This is one-to-many relationship, and the cardinality ratio for that is 1:n. And over here we can see that one person is having two mobile numbers. So we can say the cardinality ratio for this example is 1:2. Now again we need to understand that one entity from set A can have multiple entities from set B to which it relates to, but one entity from set B can be related to at most one person, one entity in set A. That is, one mobile number can be related to at most one person. That is the maximum of one person. There can be some person who does not have any mobile number at all. So that is also permitted. Right? Now let's understand how to represent that in ER diagram. We know that one person is going to be there, and for that person there can be multiple mobile numbers that we represent with N. Now there is another way of representing this. We know that for one association we represent it using the arrow. However, for multiple associations we represent it simply with an edge. So this also is the representation of many to one relationship, and the cardinality for this is 1:n. Now we need to understand many to one relationship or n:1 cardinality ratio. Now from this example we can understand that the example that we took for one to many, we have only reversed that example for n:1. So now our mobile number becomes entity set A and person becomes entity set B. Now we can say there are multiple entities from entity set A that can be related to at most one entity in entity set B. However, from entity set B, there can be an entity which relates to multiple entities from entity set A. Right? Again, we need to understand it says at most one entity from entity set B. So now there can be an entity, that is a person 3, who is not having any mobile number. Now we need to understand how it is represented in ER diagram. Now we can have multiple mobile numbers, so that is represented with n over the edge. For one person, so that is represented by 1 over the edge. So this represents n:1 relationship. And now we know that another way of representing this is, but for multiple associations we can have simply an edge. However, for one association we can have the arrow. So this is the another way of representing many to one relationship. And now for this example we also need to know that now this the cardinality ratio for this example is 2:1, because there are two mobile numbers associated with one person. So this denotes n:1 relationship or n:1 cardinality ratio. Now we need to understand many to many relationship or m:n cardinality ratio. So for that we have taken the example of teacher and the student. Now we know that there can be multiple teachers teaching multiple students, and as well as multiple students can be taught by multiple teachers. So this relationship is actually representing m:n cardinality ratio. So we can say that one entity from entity set A can be related to multiple entities from entity set B. Likewise, one entity from entity set B can be related to multiple entities from entity set A. Now, how do we represent that in ER diagram? So we know there are multiple teachers associated with multiple students. So we represent that with M and N. Now, we know that we can also represent it when there are multiple relations that we want to show. So we can we can show it with simply an edge as well, and some show it with the star. This also actually is the representation of many to many relationship. And why do we use, we can even use m:m as well, n:n as well, and then m:n as well. But this m:n actually represents, that might be the case that from this entity set two entities are associated with, suppose, three entities in this entity set. So this variable is represented by m and this variable is represented by n, right? m:m or n:n actually will represent the same number of entities from one entity set and same number of entities from another entity set. So that is why we take two different variables for the representation over here. Now we need to understand that there is a relation between the two entity sets, but now none of the entities among that is actually mapped to another entity. Actually, this edges that we are creating over here, these are actually mapping of one entity to another entity. So we say, although in entity relationship diagram the two entity sets are related to one another, but none of the entity from entity set 1 is mapped to entity set any of the entity in entity set B. So this actually is what type of relationship? So we need to know that one to one says that one entity from here should have at most one relationship from entity set B. That means maximum of one relationship. But if it does not have any relationship at all, so that is also permitted, right? So this is actually one to one relationship. And now one more thing we have to understand. Now many to many relationship states what? That one entity can have multiple entities related, right? But is it necessary that it should have multiple entities? No, it can have multiple entities, but it can be related to one entity as well. So if this is the relation that we have, so this 1:1 entity set relationship, 1:1 relationship is also many to many relationship. So now the diagram that we had before, that is if there is no mapping, so actually this is not only one to one relationship, this is many to many relationship as well. And if we understand even more, then we need to know for one to many relationship as well, the one entity can have multiple entities related, but it again says can have multiple associations. But if only one association is there, is that permittable? Yes, that is also permittable. For third as well, for many to many, it says many entities can be related to one entity. Again, it can be related to. So can one entity also be related to one entity in another set? Yes, that is also permitted. So actually one to one relationship is also one to many relationship, many to one relationship, and many to many relationship. So now we can conclude this argument by saying that many to many relationship can behave like any of these relationships, and 1:many and many:1 relationship can behave like 1:1 relationship as well. However, 1:1 relationship can only behave like its own. So this was all about cardinality ratio. Thank you.